The sentence that ended my marriage came from my 7-year-old son. He looked up from the backseat of my truck and smiled. "Dad, Mom said I wasn't supposed to tell you." I laughed. "Oh yeah, tell me what?" He shrugged like it wasn't important. "That the man from the blue truck sleeps at our house when you're away." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. "What did you say, buddy?" He looked confused. "The blue truck. Mom said he's just a friend." My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it over the engine. I didn't ask another question. I couldn't. Before I tell you what happened next, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. If you enjoy emotional stories about betrayal, family, and justice, you're in the right place. My name is Ryan Foster. I'm 42 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. For the past 18 years, I've owned a small plumbing company. It wasn't glamorous work, but it gave my family a comfortable life. My wife, Jessica, and I had been married for 14 years. We had one son, Ethan. He was my whole world. Like a lot of couples, we argued sometimes, mostly about my work. Emergency plumbing calls didn't care about birthdays or weekends. Some weeks I'd spend 2 or 3 nights working out of town on commercial jobs. Jessica hated it. "You care more about your customers than your family," she'd say. I always answered the same way. "I'm doing this for us." She never seemed convinced. Still, I never imagined she'd betray me. Jessica had always been organized. The house was spotless. Bills were paid on time. She volunteered at Ethan's school. Everyone thought we were the perfect family, including me. That afternoon, I'd picked Ethan up from baseball practice because Jessica said she had a dentist appointment. He climbed into my truck, carrying his glove and a juice box. For 10 minutes, we talked about baseball. Then he casually dropped the sentence that changed everything. "Dad, the man with the blue truck is funny." I kept my eyes on the road. "Does he come over a lot?" Ethan nodded. "Mostly when you're fixing pipes in other cities." My stomach turned. "What do you guys do?" "We eat pizza. He watches movies with Mom. He sleeps in your room because Mom says the guest room mattress hurts his back." I nearly missed the stop sign. Kids don't invent stories with details like that. Not at 7 years old. I pulled into our driveway but left the engine running. "Buddy, does Mom know he comes over?" He looked at me like I'd asked the strangest question in the world. "Of course. She told me not to tell you because it would make you sad." I forced a smile. "You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded and ran inside, completely unaware that had just shattered my life. I stayed in the truck for almost 15 minutes, watching my own house, thinking about every overnight job I'd worked during the past 2 years. Every time Jessica had insisted she couldn't come with me because Ethan had school. Every unexplained credit card charge. Every time she stopped answering her phone after 8 at night. I had always found an excuse. Now, every excuse sounded ridiculous. When I finally walked inside, Jessica was standing in the kitchen. She smiled like it was any other Tuesday. "How was practice?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in 14 years, I wondered if I had ever truly known the woman I married that evening. I acted like nothing had happened. Jessica kissed me on the cheek as she set dinner on the table. "Long day, the usual," I replied. I forced myself to smile. If Ethan was telling the truth, confronting her now would only give her time to hide whatever was going on. I needed answers, not excuses. After Ethan went to bed, Jessica curled up on the couch with her phone. She smiled at the screen. Then she quickly locked it when I walked into the room. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Tonight, everything felt different. "Who are you texting?" I asked casually. "My sister." "Everything okay?" "Yeah." She didn't look up. The conversation ended there, but something about the way she avoided my eyes told me she was lying. The next morning, I left for what Jessica believed was a 3-day plumbing job in Cincinnati. At least, that's what ID told her. In reality, I drove 20 minutes to my friend Mike's auto shop. Mike had been my best friend since high school. When he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. "What happened?" I told him everything, especially what Ethan had said. Mike stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, he sighed. You know, kids don't usually lie about stuff like that. I know. So what are you going to do? I looked out the shop window. I'm going to find out the truth. Around noon, I parked my truck on a side street 2 blocks from my house. From there, I could see our driveway without being noticed. Nothing happened for almost an hour. I started wondering if Id made a terrible mistake then. A blue Ford F-150 slowly pulled into my driveway. My heart stopped. A tall man climbed out carrying a small overnight bag. He didn't knock. He walked straight to the front door. Jessica opened it before he even reached the porch. She smiled. Not the polite smile she'd give a neighbor. The smile she used to save for me. He stepped inside. She closed the door behind him. I sat frozen in my truck. Every part of me wanted to storm into the house, to demand answers, to throw him out. But I remembered Ethan. If I lost control now, he would be the one who suffered most. So instead, I reached for my phone. I took several time-stamped photos of the blue truck parked in my driveway. Then I noticed something that made my stomach twist even more. 30 minutes later, Jessica's SUV backed out of the garage. The blue truck followed behind it. They weren't staying home. They were leaving together. I waited until they turned the corner. Then I quietly drove after them. I had no idea where they were going. But I was about to discover that the truth was far bigger than I had imagined. I stayed 3 cars behind them, close enough that I wouldn't lose them, far enough that they wouldn't notice my truck. My heart was pounding the entire time. After 20 minutes, they pulled into the parking lot of a small lakeside resort just outside Columbus. It wasn't fancy, just a quiet place where couples escaped for the weekend. I watched as Jessica stepped out of her SUV. The man from the blue truck walked over, wrapped an arm around her waist, and kissed her. Not a quick kiss, not something that could be explained away. A kiss between 2 people who had done this many times before. I felt sick, but I didn't move. Instead, I raised my phone and took several photos. Time-stamped, clear, undeniable. Then, I watched them check into the hotel together. 1 room, 1 key card, 1 reservation. There was no misunderstanding anymore. I drove home before they did, not because I was afraid, because I needed to think. The house felt strangely quiet. I walked into my office and opened the fireproof safe, where I kept our financial records. Everything was still there. Tax returns, insurance policies, property deeds, business records. Then I noticed something odd. A folder labeled Family Trust had been moved. I opened it. Nothing was missing. But someone had definitely looked through it. Jessica knew exactly where the restaurant sat on the edge of a small lake, about 30 minutes from our neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, but it wasn't cheap either. I parked across the street and watched. Jessica and the man climbed out of their vehicles laughing. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with his. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. For 14 years, that hand had belonged to me. Now she was walking into a restaurant with another man as if I had never existed. I forced myself to stay in the truck. Getting angry wouldn't help. Evidence would. I took several photos as they walked inside, time-stamped, clear enough to identify both of them. Then I followed them into the restaurant. I chose a booth near the back, hidden behind a large wooden divider. From there, I could hear pieces of their conversation. He still doesn't suspect anything, Jessica said quietly. The man laughed. He never will. I clenched my jaw. Then Jessica said something that made my blood run cold. Once the house sells, we'll finally have enough to start over. The house? Our house? I immediately opened the banking app on my phone. Nothing unusual. Then I checked my email. Buried between advertisements was a message ID ignored earlier that week. Subject document signature reminder. It was from the real estate attorney we'd used when refinancing our home 2 years earlier. Confused, I opened it. Inside was a notice saying someone had requested copies of our property records. Just 3 days ago. The request had been made using Jessica's online account. She hadn't mentioned it, not once. She wasn't just having an affair. She was planning her future without me. And somehow, our home was part of the plan. I quietly paid my bill and left before they noticed me. The moment I got back to my truck, I called my attorney. Her name was Rebecca Lawson. She had handled my business contracts for years. After listening to everything, she didn't interrupt. Finally, she asked one question. Ryan, has your wife asked you to sign anything recently? I thought for a moment. Then I remembered. 2 weeks earlier, Shed handed me a stack of papers while I was finishing dinner. They're just insurance updates, Shed said. I need your signature before tomorrow. I hadn't read them. I trusted her. I signed where she placed the sticky notes. Rebecca's voice became serious. I need you to bring me copies of those documents immediately. I don't have them. Then don't confront Jessica. Not yet. If she's preparing something involving the house, we need to know exactly what she's filed. For the second time in 2 days, I realized this wasn't an emotional affair that had gotten out of control. It was organized, planned, patient. Someone had been preparing this for months, maybe longer. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. Hope work is going well. Ethan misses you already. Love you. I stared at the message for several seconds. Then I looked at the photo's ID taken less than an hour earlier. She had sent me a heart emoji while sitting across the table from another man. At that moment, I made myself one promise. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to accuse her. I was going to let her believe I knew nothing until the truth was impossible for her to escape. I didn't sleep that night. Jessica came home around 9. She walked through the front door carrying a shopping bag and smiled like nothing had happened. Hey, she said. How was Cincinnati? Busy, I answered. She kissed me on the cheek. The same lips I'd watched kiss another man just hours earlier. I wanted to ask her one question. Why? But I stayed quiet. The truth was finally beginning to surface, and I wasn't about to ruin it by confronting her too soon. The next morning, after Jessica dropped Ethan off at school, I drove straight to Rebecca's office. She had already requested copies of every recent document filed under our property records. When I arrived, she slid a folder across her desk. Ryan, she said quietly, I think your wife believed you wouldn't notice this. I opened the folder. There it was. A listing agreement with a real estate agency. Our home, our address. Jessica had signed it. My signature appeared beside hers. I frowned. I never signed this. Rebecca nodded. I know. I looked closer. The signature looked similar to mine, but it wasn't mine. One letter was slightly different. The angle was wrong. Someone had practiced copying my signature. My stomach dropped. She forged it. Rebecca didn't answer immediately. Instead, she handed me another document. This was filed 6 days ago. It was a power of attorney form. Again my name. Again a signature pretending to be mine. This time, the mistake was even more obvious. The notary stamp had been placed in another county. A county I haven't visited in years. Rebecca leaned back in her chair. This changes everything. What do you mean? An affair is one thing. Forgery is another. She explained that forging legal documents involving real estate wasn't just grounds for a favorable divorce settlement. It could become a criminal matter. For the first time since Ethan's innocent confession, I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with fraud. That afternoon, Rebecca contacted the real estate broker. She informed them that the listing agreement contained a disputed signature. Within an hour, the property listing was frozen. The sale couldn't move forward. Jessica had no idea. She believed everything was still on track. Then something unexpected happened. Around 6 that evening, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Jessica. I answered calmly. Hey. Her voice sounded irritated. Did you call the real estate office? No, they said there's a problem with the paperwork. I wouldn't know anything about that. Silence. Then she asked. You haven't talked to a lawyer, have you? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Should I? Another long pause. No, I was just asking. She hung up so quickly that I almost laughed. For the first time since this nightmare began, she was nervous. Not because ID caught the affair, because her plan was falling apart, and she still didn't know I had photos. Phone records. security footage, copies of forged documents, and one witness she never expected, my son. Without realizing it, Ethan had uncovered the lie that Jessica had spent months trying to hide. Now, all I had to do was let the truth speak for itself. Final. The divorce hearing was scheduled 6 weeks later. By then, Rebecca had built a timeline so detailed that every lie Jessica told could be checked against a document, a photo, or a witness. I didn't need revenge. I needed the truth. And the truth had a habit of speaking for itself. When we entered the courtroom, Jessica barely looked at me. The man with the blue truck wasn't there. That didn't surprise me. People who help destroy someone else's marriage rarely stay around when lawyers get involved. The judge asked both of us to take our seats. Jessica testified first. She claimed we had been emotionally separated for over a year. She said I was never home. She said she'd only started seeing someone else after our marriage was already over. Then she added one sentence that almost made me laugh. I've always acted in my family's best interest. Rebecca stood. Your Honor, we'd like to present Exhibit A. The courtroom screen lit up. There was a time-stamped photo of Jessica kissing the man from the blue truck. The date was 3 weeks before she had told anyone our marriage was over. Jessica's attorney shifted uncomfortably. Rebecca wasn't finished. She displayed the hotel receipt, then the security footage from the restaurant. Finally, she placed the forged listing agreement on the judge's desk. Mrs. Foster? Rebecca asked calmly, did your husband authorize this signature? Jessica hesitated. I believed he would have. That's not my question. No. Did you sign his name? Jessica stared at the floor. Yes. The courtroom went completely silent. Rebecca called one final witness, Tom, our next-door neighbor. He described watching the blue truck pull into my driveway for months while I was away on overnight jobs. Then he confirmed seeing Jessica directing the movers before I even knew anything was wrong. His testimony matched every photograph, every record. Jessica's story collapsed piece by piece. The judge recessed for 30 minutes before returning with his decision. He looked directly at Jessica. This court finds that Mrs. Foster knowingly submitted forged documents regarding jointly owned property. He paused. Her actions demonstrate bad faith throughout these proceedings. Because of the forged paperwork and her attempt to sell the house without my knowledge, the court awarded me a substantially larger share of the marital estate. The forged documents were also referred to the appropriate authorities for further review. Jessica didn't lose because I embarrassed her. She lost because the evidence spoke louder than her excuses. A few months later, the divorce was final. I kept the house long enough to renovate it before selling it on my own terms. The money allowed me to pay off every debt and start fresh. More importantly, the custody agreement gave me equal parenting time with Ethan. That was the only victory that truly mattered. One Saturday, while we were throwing a baseball in the backyard of my new home, Ethan looked up at me. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Are you still sad? I smiled. Not anymore. Why? I caught the baseball and walked over to him. Because sometimes the truth hurts before it helps. He nodded, even though I wasn't sure he fully understood. Maybe one day he would. Looking back, the sentence that changed my life didn't come from a judge or a lawyer. It came from my 7-year-old son. Mom told me not to tell you. Children don't usually understand the weight of the truth they carry. Adults do. Jessica believed she could control the story. She believed lies would protect her future. Instead, one innocent sentence exposed everything. I didn't destroy my marriage. The truth did, and sometimes, that's the most powerful justice of all. If you made it to the end, I'd love to hear your opinion. If your child accidentally revealed a secret that changed your life forever, would you confront your spouse immediately, or quietly gather the truth first? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy emotional stories of betrayal, justice, and unforgettable twists, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories every week.